Now tell us about these shows that are coming up.
Well, we couldn't be more excited to kick off 2016 with our two live events in the Northeast. We had the Grand Slam Tour this summer, and simultaneously we had the AMP tapings in Las Vegas, and then we had our two shows in the United Kingdom, which were very successful. And so we're looking at next taping date and where we're going to run our next live event. And we literally sort of all collectively said, the most feedback and obviously an enormous population and a rapid hotbed of wrestling in the Northeast, but we probably had more tweets or Facebook or whatever you want to call comments online from that area. I've got a history in Poughkeepsie. Ironically, that's the first time that I personally wrestled in the Northeast for the WWE on TV in the Benham Civic Center, so I got a history there. That building is a great wrestling venue. They reached out to us as we were formulating the plan, so we knew that, okay, things have fallen into place, so we partnered with a great media group in that market as well as the Benham Civic Center, and so that fell into place. And then I've got a relationship with Pro Wrestling Syndicate. It's something that we have, from day one, we've formed partnerships with promotions from around the world, and work with Pro Wrestling Syndicate. They have a top-notch independent wrestling promotion. They run monthly several venues in that area, and so again, that show somewhat fell into place as well, and it just worked out. And we're excited. Tickets all sale tomorrow morning, so we're amped. Part of the fun.
Yeah, I read about the Pro Wrestling Syndicate partnership, and I thought that was a fantastic thing. How did that come about? Did you just approach, Pat Buck and say, "Hey, we'd like to work with you. We've got this vision. Let's make it happen"?
In short, probably yes. I mean, Pat, I did a seminar for them probably a year and a half ago. So, and I've worked with them off and on, and it's one of those things that they've got a great group of talent. The vision, as you just stated, is to work with other promotions, and Pat got on board, we got on board, and it's just something that the feedback we got yesterday, just instantaneously when we had mentioned it, was awesome. And I'm talking about not just from wrestling fans, but wrestlers, other promotions. I don't call it a cold call, but we've got a couple of, you would almost call it cold call, because we had worked with these independent promotions, one out west and one up in Canada. So we're excited to move down this track, and it's something that I think, that I was told a long time ago. Any deal that is not a win-win, eventually, at some point, falls apart at the seams. And I really think this is a win-win for Global Force, Pro Wrestling Syndicate, and in turn, the wrestling fans.
And I'm sure you've answered this question in every interview you've done in probably the past year. Global Force's TV situation. You had some publicity on TNA this year. Were you expecting to be on cable by now?
You're right. I had to ask that, and I've also, as I've stated, and there's been a couple of things online that have to play. It's a step-by-step process. One of the best things we did was go to Las Vegas. July, August, and October, and crown champions, and we have 16 one-hour episodes, and we're probably not going to announce it this month just because we're getting into the holidays, but early first week of January, second week of January, some type of announcement that we've partnered with a major player in LA. So again, we've got the episodes. Probably 6 weeks ago, we made the announcement about Boulder Creek. And they are an agency based out of London, and they attended Sportel and Midcom, both in Europe, and those are television buyers markets last week. They were in Singapore for the TV Asia Forum this week. They were in Saigon, Vietnam. Again, talking to broadcasters all around the world. It is a challenge. That may be an understatement because, the name of the company is Global Force Wrestling, so we want to launch on a global span. It's close to lining the stars up, not only here in America, but around the globe. So to answer your question, no, I don't expect anything. It truly is a building block, and you got to line things up, and it's not just television business, but the consume our media has, as everyone knows, it's just drastically changed with streaming services and the apps. And, who would have thought 2 years ago, 3 years ago that every WWE pay-per-view would be, on an app for $9.99 a month. So just that world of distribution has drastically changed. So there's so many different components. In the 70s, the wrestling promotions had to worry about 1 hour on Saturday morning, Saturday night, whatever it may be. And then as cable came along, it was, the weekend shows. And back in the old days, the TBS had wrestling on Saturday nights, and USA, they began to get into the business. And, the history tells the story that when it went Nitro and Raw, and then Raw and Nitro, that you had, as the years went on, 1 hour to 2 hours, 2 hours to 3 hours, and SmackDown and Thunder came along, and now we're in that business of 2 hours or 4 or 5 hours a week plus a pay-per-view monthly. You can see it changing rapidly. I mean, the NXT event coming up. It's just the methods that we all consume our media, whether it's sport, entertainment, news, whatever it may be, is just drastically changing, and that's where Global Force is. It goes without saying, if there's one thing I did learn, is you rush a product to market too soon for an idea, and the public's not ready for it, you set yourself up for a lot of headaches. And we're definitely not doing that. We're taking our time and making things done strategically.
Both WWE and TNA have seen record low ratings lately. Do you think that there is a desire for more pro wrestling, or do you think that those number changes are reflecting, like you said, the way that we consume our media now?
I think that when you and I had this conversation yesterday with an agent in Hollywood, and he was chuckling at some of the feedback that I was giving. Just the fact that when you say record low rating, let's take this thing into the big picture. There are so many broadcasters, producers, showrunners, whoever works in that industry, they would die to have a show that gets 3 million viewers an hour. And Raw does that for 3 hours every Monday, not 12 episodes, not 25 episodes. It's 52 weeks a year. So when you put it in that context, the ratings, downward trend at this time don't seem quite so bad. And then you have to take into the effect that how, like I said earlier, how whether it's millennials or whatever you want to call them, there's time shifted viewing, obviously the DVR, I mentioned the streaming. There's just different ways that different measurements, different barometers, and so I really think that you have to really take a step back, and that's what Davey was saying, that you just think about the reality of the fact that how many hours of pro wrestling are on. So do I think there's place in the marketplace? I can't wait to share with the world, because yes, it's a professional wrestling product, but it has a different feel, different vibe to it. So I absolutely think there's room in the marketplace for Ring of Honor, TNA, Lucha Underground, NXT, Raw, SmackDown, all of it.
I mentioned your time with TNA this year earlier. I spoke to Karen earlier this year for an interview, and I told her this, and I feel the same way now. I really think that was the best pro wrestling promo of the year, and I don't know if it was a pro wrestling promo. It was so real. I mean, and I think that's what made it so great. I'm trying to think of how I'm asking. Did that angle work like you were hoping, and how did you feel cutting that promo in the ring, and with your wife cutting a promo in the ring?
Well, I'll say as a person who's been in the business, my family's been in it over 70 years. I'm coming up on my 30th year. I probably shouldn't say that too much, but as an active wrestler, but it goes down in time when a wrestler, a talent, gets up in the ring or makes a promo, and they really play an extension of your own personality, and then speak from the heart. There was so much authenticity and realness out of that night, in that promo, that you as a viewer, me as a viewer, I was standing in the ring, and I knew Karen was speaking from the heart, and likewise, she knew I was speaking from the heart. Mike today, we had a discussion, and it's it was, you know, if you're a viewer or a wrestling fan, you'll say that was good stuff, and it came across that way. The amount of exposure that Global Force Wrestling got out of that, however many 8-10-week arc was enormous, and not just in the United States, but all around the world. So, yes, it was very successful on that level. Very, very successful.
Something else I wanted to ask. I watched the WWE's production of the Owen Hart DVD this week. Do you have any sort of relationship with WWE, or have you, or did they approach you to be a part of that? Because I know, I mean, obviously you were very close with Owen.
Yeah. I mean, and we did. We just never could line things up. No hard feelings on their part and on my part. We just never could get it. It was, I don't know, was that maybe June back when they were producing it, May or June? But I was obviously the Grand Slam shows, and just the schedules never worked out. And so, but you know, I am glad that they are putting the DVD out for Owen. You know, for no other people other than Owen Hart fans. There's a whole generation that wasn't blessed to get to know the man we all knew as Owen Hart.
And I wanted to switch gears for 1 second. I was sitting at home the other day, and my girlfriend decided to rent a movie. We looked through all the movies, came across Spring Breakers, and I know you know where I'm going with this. I saw that. I don't like to use the term mark out moment, but I kind of marked out a little bit. And she was like, "Oh, who's that?" And I was like, "It's Jeff Jarrett, and I interview him this week." And she was like, "That's super cool. How did that come about?"
Wow, it's really a cool story. The producer and writer of that movie is from Nashville, but he's Nashville-based, LA-based, Harmony Glen, and they were looking for the role I played was a pastor, but sort of a dynamic pastor. And Val Kilmer was originally going to do that part for the company, and he got moved to another production wasn't going to work out. So the casting agent, ironically enough, is they're all LA-based now. He grew up in Hendersonville, and so he's been to the fairgrounds in Nashville, and I was one of his favorites, and he remembers all that. And so they just sort of one thing came to another, and they basically just found my email somehow, emailed me. I emailed them back, and I said, you know, they just said, "Hey, would you like to be in this movie playing a pastor, youth pastor, blah, 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 blah." You know, Selena Gomez, James Franco, you know, they had a pretty couple of big stars in that movie. But they get into the quick scene, and I said, "Sure, what we'd like to see to read for it." So I read for it. This is how Robert did. Rudy Charles was working with me at the time, and he took my iPhone and we did a read. When we sent it right out to them, in about 30 minutes back, they emailed back and said, "We want you." And so it was cool. It was a unique thing, but I will have to say, with full disclosure, that, you know, I came home and told Karen and told the kids that it was going to be lining up that we were going to be shooting it the day before we went on kids' spring break. So they got to meet Selena Gomez. They got to meet Selena Gomez, and you know, we were on set. That scene was, I'll call it, very, very clean. I really had no idea the full content of that movie. So the kids, needless to say, never did get to see that movie.
I thought it was a very entertaining movie, which James Franco is, man, that guy is, he's something special, and I thought that was a really cool spot in that movie.
Very good.
And you fit very well in that role.
I appreciate it. It was fun to do. It was a good experience. The director on set, the people on set, you know, it's funny that, you know, but obviously Hollywood, they like to do multiple takes over and over and over. It's just how it's done. And as you know, in professional wrestling, you know, on live set, there are no redos, double takes, and all that. So as we shot the scene, the director, I believe he's German, but he came up and was asking, like, "You've done this same thing, and you've done it exactly the same over and over and over. Are you a trained actor?" And I go, "Nope, I'm a trained professional wrestler," and they got a kick out of that. So it was fun.
I hear that a lot from professional wrestlers. Like I spoke to Elijah Burke the other day, who's done some movies, and he said much of the same thing. It's a pretty good trait to have when you're looking to extend your screen career and things like that, which is pretty cool.
Well, and the thing about professional wrestling is, and I was, you know, as I look back on it now, I'm very fortunate I was, because when I broke in '86, and I'd been around it several years through my family's promotion, but we did live TV every Saturday morning, and we went live at 10 o'clock in the morning, and on Friday night, the night before, we were anywhere from 60, 70 miles from Memphis to 200 miles from Memphis. So you're running on fumes at times doing live TV. And if that doesn't get you prepared, nothing will to perform on live TV.
Another TNA question I had. There were rumors a couple of years ago, maybe a year or two ago, that you and Toby Keith were open to buying TNA, but there was a hang-up about the Carter family and keeping people on TV and in roles. Is that true?
There are confidentiality agreements that are in place, and I have no comment on any of that. And it's due to legally. Okay. Even if I really wanted to, which I don't, but legally I will not comment on it.
Okay. Also, you've got Chael Sonnen on your announce team. I'm a huge MMA guy. I cover MMA, trains, and everything like that. Has he expressed any interest in stepping into the ring? I know there was some things at one of the tapings that kind of maybe looked like he would.
Chael is, and if you do cover MMA, that you understand those so well, he has one of the most magnetic, charismatic personalities. I'll call it backstage. And then when he gets in the ring, it's almost to a whole nother level, or gets on camera. And so he missed his calling. I'm sure he's very happy with his MMA career, but he's definitely got a future, and he could go as far in this business if he wanted to. I don't think there is a bigger Chael Sonnen fan as it relates to professional wrestling than Nick. He's very, very, very talented, and obviously got the skills to back it up in the ring. But he's unique, and you probably know that better than I do.
Yeah, that's quite the hand to have as well. So I was, we've heard about TNA's India tour and things like that. I thought that tour was interesting because they did a superstar search trying to find an Indian superstar. Meanwhile, look at your roster, and there are Indian superstars all over it already. How important is it for you to diversify that Global Force roster? Because, it is Global Force Wrestling. You don't have, a bunch of white guys or anything like that just on your roster. Your roster is ethnically diverse. Everything, their backgrounds are different. It's international flavor. How important is that to you?
I think it's very, very important, and I think the world we live in, you have to be aware of the wrestling fan bases, and I don't have to tell you, because you do report on wrestling, how big of a wrestling fan base that exists in India, in Japan, in Mexico, in Germany, in UK, in South Africa. Huge, and they all have built-in fan bases, and they're all just a little bit of a different style of wrestling. Even Puerto Rican wrestling, shows have a little bit different flavor than German, or U.S. shows. And Germany and the UK are close, but each of those shows have just a little bit of a different flavor, and it appeals to me. Before I wrestled and promoted, I was a wrestling fan, and it really does appeal to me to have diversity, because you're not seeing the same thing over and over and over and over in one night. Six matches, 7 matches, 8 matches. I think it's very healthy to have that diversity.
Yeah, I look up and down at your champions, and you have a British champion. You have Christina Von Eerie, who looks like nobody else in wrestling. The Bollywood boys, Sanjay Dutt. There was a situation where you all had a title change in, I think it was Winston-Salem a couple of weeks ago, because it appears that PJ Black's going to Lucha Underground. How do you approach situations like that when you've got a champion, but he might be going elsewhere? Obviously you had the right situation at hand, but what's it like to have to figure out things like that on the fly?
It is, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but my family's been around a long time, and you had back in the territory days, you had to deal with guys moving on and going to another territory essentially overnight. Then you just you deal with it, whether it's injuries, whether it's contractual status, whether it's politics, there's so many different occasions that come up. It's just part of it, and always has been and always will be. You can look at I don't know the inner workings of the WWE, but obviously they had to strategically figure things out when they knew Cena was going on to film a television show. It's just part of the business, and like I said, always has been and always will be.
Yeah, I keep looking up and down your roster, and I just see this. It's such an eclectic group, and these guys, even if they're not in the likes of WWE has their eyes on a lot of these guys too. Is that something that you think that your experience is going to help making sure your roster stays replenished and things like that? Because a lot of people are going to they're going to poach your guys. Obviously, you have a good eye for talent.
Again, it happens, and that's something that over the years, and I can remember, as a teenager, when hearing my dad and Jerry Lawler talk, Lawler was a mainstay and never really left this territory as it related to his territory, and Phil Dundee had a good run, and Dutch did too at times, but other than really Lawler and maybe Dundee and one or two others, there was an enormous turnover in talent to keep it fresh, and that's just how this business operates. And over the last 10, 15 years, and I'll say based out of the Monday Night Wars, when Hogan jumped and then Hall and Nash jumped, how the non-competes and the contractual status went to a whole other level, and that works on one end, but on the other end, at times when you're dealing with budgets, we dealt with this in TNA. When you deal with budgets, sometimes it prevents you from growing and having that fresh approach that I believe, and other promoters will probably say this, that you need. The production company Bridge Rock Entertainment, we talked about that, the Roddy Piper movie, we talked about that in a minute, but some of the, they're Hollywood folks, and they were asking me, sort of like you're saying, that they got online, and as we were putting the deal together, they were looking at the website and the diversity, and they started trying to pick my brain, and they were going like, yeah, in a way, a great Hollywood movie will have that A-lister and maybe one other, but then you've got to sort of build your cast with maybe a legend in there, maybe a fresh up and cover, maybe a really unique type actor that isn't getting a ton of work, but he's got something special and unique about him, and it just makes for the makings of a good movie. And that's sort of the nature of the beast.
Something else I wanted to ask, you have a member of your roster, Lady Tapa, who's going to be competing in a pretty big MMA fight later this month. What were your thoughts when you heard that?
I loved it. When we, she had been and read her. We've been talking about it, and I'm like, I at first I was like, because she's a great athlete and all state volleyball, and there's legendary stories of her football days and how she wreaked havoc on that field, and just her athletic ability. But when she was getting presented this opportunity, I couldn't be happy. Again, it's another element that I hope as we continue to go down that we keep these elements of Global Force Wrestling of doing things just a little bit different than they've been done over the past. Bobby Lashley's a guy that's going back and forth right now. There have been from time to time, but I think it's fantastic. Lady Tapa, I'll definitely be watching and supporting, and already supporting her, and really, really happy for her.
Yeah, obviously you have Chael Sonnen in there who has the MMA connection. I know your play-by-play guy, Cyrus Fees, who I know did a lot of commentating for MMA, and Harry Smith, I expect him to hop into MMA almost any day now after training with Billy Robinson for so long. Also, I wanted to ask you, what do you think wrestling is lacking today?
That's a good question, and I'll leave that one unanswered because, that as we move along, you know, I don't say it's lacking, but taking more risk on certain levels. And I'm not talking about high-flying moves. I'm talking about whether it's production or creative or marketing. I'll say taking more calculated risks and don't rest on what's worked in the past on every level.
When can we expect to see? Or your fans are obviously looking forward to Global Force Wrestling, and you said we talked about the TV and stuff. Are there any plans on releasing any content if maybe a TV deal doesn't come to be?
I mean, you can go to all of our social media platforms, specifically if you want, content on YouTube, and all of them are at GFW Wrestling. And so we're going to continue to feed that. But like I said, we're lining up, strategizing, not just in the U.S., but internationally as well. And the AMP episodes will be seen in 2016. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but no, the world will have their opportunity to watch them.
Oh, that definitely answered my question. Do you all have your eye on former WWE talent as well? Like we see guys like Brad Maddox that are released, former TNA talent like Austin Aries, or are you all happy at this moment, or at least for the upcoming tapings, with the roster you have?
I'm always looking. You always have to. We were at WrestleCade a couple of weeks ago, a very, very successful event, and I made a point to they had a night on a show on Friday night as well as a show on Saturday, and I made the point to watch a little bit of each match. You just have to do that, and there's the database that we have. Sometimes people chuckle at that, but it's legit, and it's something that I want to put together. That I think is very useful, that you have to put all the talent that's out there that's non-WWE, or I'll say it's non-contracted talent. And then that way you can look at them and look at all shapes, sizes, experience, and potential, and just everything that goes in. You always, as a promoter, you always have to be looking for talent. I can assure you, Vince McMahon would agree with that, or he wouldn't have set up and really what they're doing with not just NXT, but Performance Center. It's a training ground, it's a breeding ground, and he's preparing. Because you got to be prepared to create and have new wrestlers step up and really call, take the ball by the horns and run with it, and always finding that. And so you have to as a promoter.
One more before we go. You had great success helping promote New Japan Wrestle Kingdom 9 last year. I mean, the response we got on the site was incredible for it. For a show, a pay-per-view that started at like 3 or 4 in the morning, following a major UFC pay-per-view at that, and we had an insane amount of attention. They had some hiccups with their first American broadcast of New Japan World. Were you surprised that they went the route of New Japan World? And when they had the hiccups on that, were you surprised that they didn't maybe try to go the traditional pay-per-view route again with Wrestle Kingdom 10?
Well, they obviously have their reasons, and it's very obvious to me, although no one has specifically articulated it. But they're no different than the WWE in that aspect. Is they want to build New Japan World, and I completely understand that. And like any startup business, we have it, they have it. You're going to have growing pains, you're going to have aches and pains. And so I'm sure they sat down and said, this is the route we're going. But I can't tell you what a great experience that was. Personally, for me, someone at my stage of my career, to be able to wrestle on that card, I think it'll go down. It'll stand the test of time and go down in history as one of the best events in history. But for Global Force Wrestling, stepping on the scene and having Jeff Ross, I would say not just part of it, lead the way. And it goes without saying that, having a man of his stature, his ability, his drive, his passion, all of the above, it was a great experience. And I had a real good feeling going in, this time last year as the ball started to roll, the promotions, and, me and him were working, every day on getting the word out, and you could feel the momentum. I've talked to several wrestling journalists that have told me the same thing. You're echoing it as well. Just the buzz, the traffic, the feedback, the anticipation all over the world. And then Flip's app came on, and so it was truly a global event. It was really, really rewarding, and it's definitely a special day in Global Force Wrestling history.
And finally, tell us where the fans can follow you and Global Force Wrestling on social media.
Yeah, I did want to hit a couple things, and I talked about the Piper movie, and it's something that they approached Ridge Rock Entertainment, they approached Global Force Wrestling, and basically wanted us to be I'll call it a marketing arm, a consulting agreement to help them promote the movie to the wrestling audience. And over the last, several months, it's turned into somewhat of a passion project because, I've viewed the movie. It treats professional wrestling with such integrity. If you're a wrestling fan, you will love it because it's got a great story. It's based on a true story inspired by a real event. And then it builds and builds and builds. It builds to the big cage match, and there's a lot of drama in it. It's just, I can't say enough good about it. Roddy Piper, and you get this, Sean, he plays a evil wrestling promoter. So I'm sure he didn't have to stretch his acting skills, although there he meant. But no, he did a fantastic job. He's awesome in the movie. It's a movie for all ages to see, and it's a story about a pastor in Orlando, Florida, who was a journeyman wrestler, and he got into the church and the word and preaching. He sort of had some issues with the church and with his own self. He just really wasn't sure what direction to go, and it's played out in the movie, and it's great. It launches January 8th nationwide. Theaters all across the country. We're going to the big premiere event January 7th. Be here and kids. It's going to be a special night, special movie. It really, I'll say it again, if you're a wrestling fan, and especially if you're a Roddy Piper fan, you definitely want to see this. So, Sean, you know where to reach me, globalforcewrestling.com, or any of our social media is at GFW Wrestling. And my Twitter is @RealJeff Jarrett. And I appreciate all your help you've done in promoting the brand.
Well, I thank you for taking the time. Obviously, Wrestling Inc. always loves talking to Jeff Jarrett. Always good stuff. But, yeah, thank you very much for the time, and we obviously wish Global Force Wrestling success. Guys, you've got to go check out the Roddy Piper movie. Go check that out. But, yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, and one other thing, all of their social media is @DMattSaint. So appreciate your help, Sean, and we'll talk after the new year.
Thank you. Take care.
Happy holidays.